Oluchi, she said softly, her voice warm but trembling with the weight of all that had been lost. You are my sister. The words fell gently, like the first drops of rain on dry, cracked earth. They landed in Oluchi's chest and broke something open, something fragile and aching. Oluchi covered her face with both hands and cried harder, her knees still pressed into the dust. The village seemed to hold its breath with her. The Udala tree swayed gently overhead, its leaves whispering secrets to the morning wind. Amarachi pulled her close and held her tightly, as if the pain between them could be mended with warmth alone. You did nothing, Amarachi whispered. You are innocent. What our mother did was hers alone. Oluchi trembled like a child lost at sea. But everyone will look at me and remember her. They will call me the daughter of a murderer, the child of shame. No, Amarachi said firmly, lifting her chin. You are not her sins. You are your own spirit, your own path. You are my sister. You stay here, with us. Papa Yuk, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. His voice was low, rough, and exhausted, like a drum whose skin had worn thin over years of sorrow. Oluchi. She froze, her tears suspended mid-breath, her eyes wide with fear. He stood slowly from under the Udala tree. The weight of years hung on his shoulders, memories, regrets, and wounds deeper than time itself. He walked to her and placed one trembling hand on her head. My child, he said, his voice breaking. Do you know why the wind still blows through a burned field? Oluchi blinked, confused. So life can return, Papa Yuk whispered. The tears she held finally broke. He gathered both Amarachi and Oluchi into his arms, pulling them close, embracing them the way he had not done in years, perhaps ever. Both of you are my daughters. The past will not divide you again. And there, under the Udala tree, where so much sorrow had blossomed, a new seed of healing was planted. But healing is never gentle, not in a village like Aguta, not when the dead do not rest. The days that followed, the next few days moved slowly, heavy and quiet, like the hush before rain breaks the sky. Whispers followed Oluchi wherever she walked. That is her, the daughter of the one who killed Ngozi, the child who lived under sorcery and did not know. Some eyes were sharp with judgment, others were soft with pity, but all looked. Amarachi never left Oluchi's side. She walked with her to the stream, to the market, to the farmlands. She stood beside her when the village women fell quiet, pretending to stir their pots with casual interest, though their ears strained for gossip. Oluchi's spirit had cracked, but it had not broken. At night, she wept softly. Amarachi heard her, even when she pretended to sleep. Papa Yuk watched his daughters from a quiet distance. His grief was heavy, but so was his guilt. He often sat under the Udala tree long after the household slept, staring into the dark as if the night held answers. But the night had begun to carry something else. The whisper of footsteps, the flutter of something unseen, a presence moving where no living person walked. Oluchi's dream. On the fifth night, Oluchi dreamed. She stood in a clearing surrounded by tall, whispering reeds. Fog curled low along the ground like spirits made of breath. The moon hung full and swollen above her, bleeding silver light. And there, across the clearing, stood a woman dressed in white. Amarachi's mother, Ngozi. But this time, her eyes were not burning with fury. They were full of sorrow, deep, endless sorrow, like a well that never empties. Oluchi, she said, her voice soft as water over stones. Oluchi tried to speak, but her voice was lost. Her heart raced. Her knees shook. Do not fear me, Ngozi whispered. Oluchi's voice finally tore free. Why are you here? My mother has been punished. She is gone. Why are you still here? Ngozi stepped forward lightly, like mist moving. Because pain does not end when punishment begins, she said. The river of sorrow still runs. Oluchi swallowed, tears forming. What do you want from me? Ngozi looked at her for a long moment, and in her eyes, Oluchi saw something she had not expected. Compassion. I want peace, Ngozi said quietly. For myself. For your father. For Amarachi. For you. Oluchi's breath trembled. Ow! Ngozi raised her hand. The moon dimmed. The fog thickened. The ground shifted. Suddenly, they stood before the old mango tree behind Papa Yuke's compound. And at its base, something was buried, wrapped in old cloth, tied with dried vine, humming faintly, like a heart that still remembered how to beat. A charm, a binding, a wound that had never closed. Ngozi's voice echoed like wind from far away. The past must be uncovered. Only then will the dead rest. Oluchi reached forward and woke up, gasping. The revelation. The morning was cool and gray when Amarachi found Oluchi sitting outside, staring at the mango tree as though it were speaking to her. Oluchi, she asked gently. Oluchi turned, her face pale, eyes glistening. I saw her, she whispered. Amarachi's heart stopped. Who? Your mother. The wind stilled. Amarachi inhaled slowly. In a dream? No, Oluchi's voice broke. In a message. And she told her everything. Every detail. Every word. Amarachi's hands shook, but she did not doubt her. Some truths do not need evidence. The spirit recognizes itself. At sunset, they went to Papa Yuke. He listened. He did not interrupt. When Oluchi finished, he closed his eyes and breathed out slowly, as if exhaling years. We must dig, he said simply. That night, under the moon, the three of them walked to the mango tree. Papa Yuke lifted the hoe. Amarachi held a lantern. Oluchi stood close, fingers trembling. The ground was hard at first, but then soft, disturbed, as if something had been buried there long ago. The hoe struck cloth. Papa Yuke froze. He knelt. His hands trembled as he brushed away earth. The charm lay there, just as the dream had shown, wrapped in faded white cloth, tied with thread, stained by time. The air grew still. The night felt like it was listening. Papa Yuke lifted it slowly. A cold wind swept through the compound. The lantern flickered. Oluchi clenched Amarachi's hand. Papa Yuke closed his eyes. My wife, he whispered into the night. Ngozi, rest now. He poured libation onto the earth. He whispered prayers older than memory. He spoke forgiveness, not as a gift but as release. The wind sighed. The mango leaves rustled softly. And somewhere, far away, a woman's peaceful breath exhaled into the dark. But peace was only the beginning, for the one who had been banished was not truly gone. The forest has many paths, and at night, something was stirring in its shadows, something that had not come to seek forgiveness, but to return, to claim what the darkness had promised. Night in a Guta village often passed softly, like a quiet river slipping through the dark. But now, the air carried a different weight, an unsettled whispering that clung to the wind and found its way into every hut, every courtyard, every restless dream. People spoke in hushed voices about the banishment of Nkem, about the spirits that did not rest, about the mango tree that seemed to sigh when the night was deepest. Yet beneath the whisper of rumors, beneath the quiver of fear, life moved on. Amarachi continued her daily chores, her steps slower now, quieter, as though every movement carried the memory of sorrow. Oluchi stayed close to her, silent, watchful, always one breath away from breaking. Papa Yuke had become thinner, his once steady hands trembling slightly, though he tried to hide it. The air around him felt heavy with guilt and with longing for the peace he had not known in years. But there was something else too. Something watching a Guta, something waiting. Because in the depths of the forest, where the moonlight barely touched the ground and the trees grew so thick the air itself felt alive, and Kim moved like a broken shadow among the tangled roots and curling vines. She had been walking for days. Her feet were cracked. Her wrapper was torn. Her hair hung wild and tangled down her back. She had no gourd for water, no food except leaves and water from muddy pools. But her body moved as though something inside her drove her forward. Something deep, something ancient, something hungry. She did not call it by name, but the forest knew, and the forest remembered. The woman in the forest. Deep among the towering Yurako trees stood a hut made of woven sticks and bark, older than the oldest elder in a guta. Smoke curled slowly from a small hole in the roof. Dried herbs hung from the doorway, swaying in the breeze like quiet watchers. This was the home of Odiu, the witch whose name was never spoken aloud, except in desperation. Kim stood before the hut, trembling, not from fear, but from shame and need. She pushed the woven mat aside and stepped in. Inside, the air was thick with incense and shadows. A single clay lamp flickered dimly, making the gourds and bones hanging from the ceiling shift like spirits. Odiu sat cross-legged on a mat of raffia, her gray hair falling down her back like a river of ash. Her eyes, milky yet sharp, turned toward Nkem the moment she entered. "You have returned," Odiu said, her voice low, almost amused. "The child of jealousy, the hand that struck the earth in the night." Nkem fell to her knees, her tears mixing with the dirt floor. "Mother of the unseen," she whispered hoarsely, "I have lost everything. My husband, my child, my place in the world. The ghost of Ngozi torments me. I cannot breathe. I cannot sleep. I am chased by shadows. Help me, please." Odiu did not blink. "Did you think," she said slowly, "that death ends what envy begins?" Kim shook, her breath catching. "I did not know. I did not know the dead would rise against me." Odiu leaned forward. "Every wound you give the world comes back to find you, even when you're not ready." She tapped the clay floor lightly with one long, crooked finger. "But the dead do not return without purpose. If Ngozi haunts, it is because the living still hold something she cannot release." Kim's eyes widened. "What must I do?" she whispered. Odiu smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Return to Aguta," she said. "Return to the mango tree where your crime was rooted. The shadow of the dead has not finished its work, and until the ritual is done, the spirit will not sleep." Kim recoiled. "If I return, they will kill me," she said. Odiu's eyes flickered like a flame meeting wind. "Then you must return unseen. The forest will cloak you. But your heart must be steady, steady like a drum that refuses to stop beating." Kim swallowed hard. "What ritual? What must be done?" Odiu reached behind her and picked up a dried, hollowed calabash, the kind used to store ancestral offerings. Its surface was carved with faint symbols that pulsed faintly as though breathing. "You will take this," Odiu said, holding it out. "Inside is silence, and inside silence is power. When you return to the mango tree, place it at the roots. If the spirit is ready to rest, the calabash will remain still. But if the spirit is not finished..." Kim trembled. "What will happen?" Odiu smiled again, her teeth sharp as bone. "Then the night will speak your name." Kim did not understand, but she did not ask. She took the calabash, and the forest seemed to exhale around her. The village that waits. Back in Aguta, the air was still heavy with grief. But something else had settled too. Something like hope, though thin and delicate like a drying leaf. Amarachi woke early each morning to sweep the courtyard. Oluchi fetched water from the stream. Papayuk sat beneath the Udala tree every sunset, staring into a horizon that no one else could see. Yet on the third night after Oluchi's dream, something changed. The moon was full and bright, casting silver across the compound. Amarachi and Oluchi slept side by side on a woven mat. The night was quiet. Then, a whisper, a rustle, a sound too soft to be footsteps, yet too deliberate to be wind. Oluchi stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. The compound was empty, but she felt it, a presence. She sat up, her breath shallow. There, standing by the mango tree, was a silhouette. Tall, thin, wrapped in a torn, dirt-streaked wrapper. Oluchi's heart froze. "Mama!" The figure said nothing. It only stood there, still as stone, yet alive as fever. The moonlight shifted, and the face became clear. It was Nkem, her mother, alive, but not the woman she remembered. Her eyes were hollow. Her skin was pale. Her feet were bare and bleeding. And in her hands, she held a calabash. "Oluchi," she whispered, her voice hoarse as wind over dry bones. "Come." Oluchi shook her head, tears forming. "Mama, you shouldn't be here." You've been banished. If the village sees. Come, Kim repeated, her voice breaking. Before I lose myself completely. Her hand trembled. Oluchi stood, slowly, drawn by something deeper than fear. Amarachi, still sleeping lightly, stirred as if sensing something, but did not wake. Oluchi walked. The grass was cold under her feet. Her throat tightened as she reached her mother. "Mama," she whispered, "why are you here?" Kim swallowed, her voice barely holding together. "I came to save us. Before darkness finishes swallowing my soul." She pressed the calabash into Oluchi's hands. "You must bury this," she whispered, "under the mango tree. Tonight, before sunrise." Oluchi stared down at the calabash, her hands trembling. "What is inside it?" she asked. Kim's voice broke. "My last chance." The night air shivered. The leaves whispered. A soft wind curled around them, the kind that did not belong to this world. Kim backed away, her eyes wide with desperation. "Go, child, before it is too late. The dead are not finished speaking." Oluchi turned to look at the mango tree. Then, a voice like a river pulling through the earth whispered behind her. "Oluchi." She spun. Ngozi stood beside Kim. Not angry, not glowing, not terrifying, just sad, deeply, heartbreakingly sad. Kim let out a sound that was not quite a sob, not quite a breath, just pain made in a sound. "Please," she whispered to the night. "Forgive me." Ngozi looked at her for a long time. Then she spoke. "I cannot forgive what you have not yet undone." Kim fell to her knees. The calabash in Oluchi's hands pulsed once, like a heartbeat. The wind rose. The mango leaves rattled. And the night opened its eyes. Everything was about to change. And forgiveness, true forgiveness, has never been gentle, nor has the price ever been small. The wind that moved through Aguta that night was unlike any wind the villagers had ever known. It did not simply brush leaves or stir dust. It listened. It coiled and circled as though tasting the breath of every living soul. The moon, full and pale, watching from its throne in the sky, seemed to flicker as though something unseen passed between it and the earth. Oluchi stood beneath the mango tree, the calabash warm in her hands, the weight of it pressing into her palms as though it had a heartbeat of its own. Her mother's form, ragged, shaken, half-shadow, stood only a few paces behind, while the ghost of Ngozi hovered near, her presence like cold light rippling across the air. Amarachi stirred in her sleep again, unease pulling at her spirit like a distant drumbeat. Deep in his hut, Papa Yuk blinked awake without knowing why, his bones humming with something ancient. But Oluchi was already marked by the night. She could feel it. The tree, the earth, the air, they were waiting for what she would choose. The voice of the earth. Oluchi knelt at the base of the mango tree, her hands trembling as she began to dig. The soil was cold, damp, and heavy with the scent of roots and old memory. Her breaths came shallow and quick, her heart a frantic drum. The whisper of the ghost moved around her, neither warm nor cold, but sad. So deeply sad that Oluchi's heart stretched tight inside her chest, threatening to break. Kim stood back, her shoulders hunched, as though any movement might shatter her entirely. Tears streaked her dirt-covered face. "Go on," Ngozi's voice whispered, not in words heard by the ears, but by the soul. "The ground remembers. The ground is waiting." Oluchi dug faster, tears falling silently, not knowing whom she cried for. Ngozi, her mother, herself. When the hole was deep enough, she lowered the calabash into the earth. The ground shuddered, not the way earth moves in storms, the way a breathing thing moves. The mango tree leaves rattled above her, though there was no wind now. Kim let out a small gasp and stumbled backward. And then the calabash cracked, not loudly, not violently, just delicately, like an egg opening to reveal the creature inside. A soft golden mist seeped from it, curling upward like the smoke of incense. It shimmered, warm and glowing, beautiful, almost holy. Ngozi stepped forward. Her ghost body flickered once, then brightened, as though the mist fed her light. But the light did not stay gentle. It shimmered deeper, thicker, heavier, until it coiled, not around Ngozi's spirit, but around Kim. Kim's eyes widened. No, 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 she whispered, shaking her head furiously. This is not for me. This is not what I came for. This is not. The mist wrapped her like arms. Not cruel, not violent, just reclaiming. Because forgiveness cannot be taken. It must be given. And Kim had never given it to herself. She sank to her knees, her fingers digging into the earth. Tears poured down her face in a flood that could not be stopped. I did not know, she cried. I did not know the shape of my own darkness. I did not know what envy could steal. I did not know. Ngozi's voice floated to her, soft, aching, full of sorrow more ancient than either of them. You knew, she whispered. You simply did not look. The golden mist swirled faster now, circling the mango tree, circling Kim, circling Oluchi, who stood frozen between two worlds. The tree groaned, the earth trembled, and then a second voice rose, deep, low, not human, not alive, the ancestor voice of the land. You have opened what was sealed. The wind burst outward, sweeping across the compound so strongly that Amarachi sat upright instantly, her heart pounding. Papa Yuk stumbled out of his hut, gripping a staff that suddenly felt pitiful against the night. Oluchi turned toward the voice, though there was no single direction it came from. It was everywhere, in the leaves, in the soil, in her blood. What have I done? She whispered. The answer did not return in words. It returned in presence. From a far edge of the compound came the sound of footsteps, not hurried, not timid, steady. A presence emerged from the shadows, small, delicate, quiet. A child, but not a living one. Ngozi's daughter, the one who died in the womb. Her spirit formed before them, a little girl with bright eyes that glowed like moonlight caught in water. Her hair was braided, her feet bare. She held nothing, yet her very being weighed the night. Kim let out a scream, so raw it tore the dark wide open. Amarachi stumbled out of the hut just in time to see the child of the dead standing beneath the mango tree. Papa Yuk fell to his knees, his staff clattering to the earth. The child spirit lifted her small hand and pointed at Kim. The air thickened. No one breathed. No one moved. No one existed outside that single gesture. Kim's body shook. Her lips parted, and a whisper escaped. Take me. The golden mist surged, wrapped her, lifted her, held her. For a moment, just a breath. And Kim looked like she did before all of this. Before jealousy, before madness, before loss carved her into something unrecognizable. Young, soft, full of love she did not know how to carry. She whispered, Oluchi, forgive me. Her voice cracked down the middle. Oluchi collapsed to the ground, clutching the dirt, screaming in a voice she did not know she had. Mama, Mama. And Kim smiled, a small, broken, beautiful smile, and closed her eyes. Then, like ash dissolving into air, she was gone. Not swallowed, not devoured, not punished, released. The golden mist sank back into the earth. The ghost of Ngozi knelt beside the child who had never breathed a day of life. She looked at Oluchi, not with hate, with softness, with sorrow, with acknowledgement. Then, she too faded, and the night was still. The after silence. The world did not break. It did not explode. It simply exhaled. Amarachi held Oluchi in her arms as the girl sobbed, her screams softer now, more human, more wounded, more alive. Papa Yuk wept openly, not for the dead, but for how long the living carry grief without knowing. The mango tree rustled gently, as though relieved. The forest listened and remembered, because forgiveness is not a moment. It is the lifetime that follows. Morning did not break gently over a guitar. It crept in slowly, like a hesitant visitor unsure if it was welcome. The horizon glowed with the faintest blush of pale orange, washed with gray. The air was heavy, damp, and thick with the scent of turned soil beneath the mango tree. Birds did not sing. Roosters did not crow. Even the goats were silent, as though the animals too had felt the weight of the night before and now stood still, waiting. Oluchi had not slept. She sat curled in Amarachi's arms beneath the hut's shaded entrance. Her eyes were red and swollen, her breath trembling in her chest. Amarachi rocked her slowly, humming an old lullaby, one sung to children who feared thunderstorms. But this was a storm that no song could chase away. Papayuk sat nearby, staring at the ground. His face looked carved from stone, lines deep, eyes hollowed with a pain that had no language. He held his staff in both hands, gripping it tightly enough his knuckles turned white. No one spoke, because how does one find words when the dead have come and gone, and the living have been remade in their wake? The quiet walk through the village. By mid-morning, word had reached every ear in Aguta. Women whispered as they pounded yam. Men sat with clay pipes unlit, staring into nothing. Children stayed close to their mothers, sensing something they could not name. They did not speak of Nkem's return. They did not speak of the ghost under the mango tree. They did not speak of the calabash or the golden mist or the voice of the earth that had filled the night like thunder held underwater. They spoke only of Oluchi, of the girl who had been touched by the spirits, of the girl who had buried both her mother and her mother's sins beneath the tree. Some said she had become a gate between worlds. Some said she would bring fortune. Others whispered she would bring curse. But none came near the compound. Respect. Fear. The line between them was thin. The elders gather. By noon, the drum of the council called. Slow. Heavy. Solemn. Not a summons. A command. Papayuk stood slowly. His joints ached. His heart ached more. Amarachi rose too, but he shook his head. No, he said softly. This is not for you to carry. Amarachi looked at him, really looked and understood. The council did not call her. It called him, the father of the guilty, the father of the forgiven, the man who had carried the silence of a crime that had reshaped destiny. Oluchi reached for his wrapper weakly. Papa, she whispered. He knelt beside her, cupping her face, something he had not done since she was small enough to fit in the crook of his arms. My daughter, he said softly, voice breaking like a dry branch underfoot. You have walked through the shadow of the ancestors and returned. What comes now is not your burden. It is mine and your mother's, and all the choices we made long before you were old enough to speak. Tears slid down Oluchi's cheeks, silent, endless. Papayuk pressed his forehead to hers. Live, he whispered. Just live. That is all I ask. Then he rose and walked away. The staff tapped the earth steadily. Each step sounded like a heart counting time. The Council of Aguta. The meeting place was an open clearing surrounded by ancient Irako trees. Mats of woven palm leaves covered the ground, and a great wooden mask of the first ancestors stared down from a raised platform. The elders sat in a wide circle, men who had carried the weight of decision for decades. As Papayuk entered, the murmurs died. He did not bow. He simply stood. Elder Me, the oldest among them, lifted his voice. Uchenna, he said, speaking Papayuk's full name. Last night, the spirits walked your compound. A woman who had been banished returned. A ghost touched the living world, and a child who never breathed stood beneath the mango tree. These things do not happen without reason. Papayuk nodded once. It is true, he said, voice steady. Tell us. Eldami continued. What did the dead come to claim? Silence fell. Every ear tilted forward. Every breeze stilled. Papayuk closed his eyes. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, yet heavy enough to bend the air. They came for truth. A slow murmur rippled through the circle. But he was not finished. My wife, he said, committed a grave wrong. She took a life out of envy. And I, knowing, did not speak. I allowed the silence to rot our home. I allowed it to swallow our daughter. I allowed it to poison the very air of Aguta. And for this, the dead did not rest. The elders listened, no judgment on their faces. Because truth is not a weapon here. Truth is a mirror. The spirits have settled their part, Papayuk said. Now we the living must settle ours. Elder Me leaned forward. And what do you believe must be done, Uchenna? Papayuk lifted his eyes. In the pain there was ancient. Let her be remembered, he said. Not as a witch, not as a monster, but as a woman who lost her way and found it only at the edge of the grave. Let her burial be beneath the mango tree. Let her name be spoken, not in fear, but as a reminder of where jealousy leads when it has no home. Silence spread. The council breathed, and then Eldermy nodded. So it shall be. The burial without a body. The village gathered at sunset. No drums were played. No songs were sung. The mango tree stood tall, its branches heavy with quiet. Oluchi walked to the tree, her feet steady now. Not because she was healed, but because grief had carved new bones inside her. Amarachi walked beside her. Papayuk stood behind them. The villagers circled, heads bowed, not looking long at the tree, nor at the ground where the calabash had been buried. They did not speak, but the silence itself was prayer. Papayuk stepped forward. This ground holds memory, he said. What was done in darkness has been brought into light. Let the tree bear witness. Let the earth hold peace. Let the ancestors close what has been opened. He placed his palm on the trunk, and for the first time in years, the mango tree blossomed. Out of season, soft white flowers opening like sighs. The villagers gasped. The ancestors had spoken, and Kim's name would no longer be cursed. It would be remembered. The world shifted, not loudly, but deeply. The night after, when the village slept, the wind returned, gentle this time. Oluchi lay awake, staring at the roof of the hut. Her tears were gone, though sorrow lay quiet beneath her ribs. Amarachi slept beside her, one hand resting lightly on her arm. Papayuk slept for the first time without dreams. The mango tree stood in the moonlight, blossoms glowing softly like stars fallen to earth. Somewhere beyond sight, but not beyond feeling, a mother rested, a daughter breathed, and the world moved forward. Not healed, but healing. In the weeks that followed, a Guda village seemed to move through time like a body learning how to breathe again. The air was softer. The nights, though still deep and full of secrets, no longer pressed against the chest with dread. Women sang again at the stream while washing clothes. Children resumed their laughter, chasing one another between compounds. The market's chatter returned like birds finding their way home after a long storm. But beneath it all, beneath the daily hum of life, a quiet shift had taken place, like a river that had changed course beneath the earth, unseen but undeniable. At the center of that shift was Oluchi. Her steps were slower now, but firmer. Her eyes, once bright with youthful innocence, had deepened, gaining the quiet knowing of someone who has stood at the edge of the unseen and returned with its shadows. She did not speak of the night beneath the mango tree. No one asked her to. The silence held the memory, and the memory held power. Amarachi stayed close to her, gentle and steady, as though Oluchi was a clay pot that had been cracked and fired again in flame. Stronger now, but still humming with heat. Papayuk moved differently too. He did not carry shame now. He carried truth. And truth, though heavy, is an honorable weight. Yet healing is not something that simply happens. It is something one must walk toward. And Oluchi's walk had only begun. The return to the stream. One early morning, before the sun fully rose, Oluchi took her calabash and walked toward the riverbank. The air was cool, mist hovering like a thin veil over the land. The path was familiar. She had walked it many times as a child, always running, always laughing. This time, she walked slowly. When she reached the riverbank, she sat on a smooth stone and watched the water glide over the rounded rocks. The river was calm today, its surface a slow-moving mirror. But beneath that surface, the current was strong, as it always had been. Life moves like that. Calm above, fierce below. She dipped her hand into the water. It was cold enough to sting. "Are you afraid?" a voice asked behind her. Oluchi did not turn immediately. She knew the voice. Chidabem. He had grown taller, broader across the shoulders, though the gentleness in his eyes had not changed. He carried a woven basket, likely heading to the fishing nets further upstream. Oluchi exhaled softly. Everyone fears something. Chidabem walked closer and sat beside her. For a long time, they said nothing. The river spoke for them. Finally, he asked, quietly, cautiously, "Do you see them still?" Oluchi shook her head. "No." They have both gone. The tree holds him now, and the earth sleeps again. Chitabem nodded. I'm glad, he said. Then more gently, I worried you were alone in that night. Oluchi looked at him then, her eyes deep and steady. I was not alone, she said. That was the hardest part. Chitabem's breath caught just slightly, not in fear, but in understanding. He did not ask more. He did not try to fix the ache. He simply sat with her, and that, in itself, was a kind of healing. The festival of the first rain. As seasons shifted, the first rains came, soft at first, then heavy and full, beating the dust into rich, dark earth. The festival of first rain approached, a celebration of renewal, planting, and the opening of a new agricultural cycle. It was a time of drums and dance and food shared in abundance. For the first time in many moons, Papa Yuke and Amarachi prepared to attend. Oluchi helped grind peppers and pound yam. Her hands worked steadily, and though she did not sing with the other young girls, her silence no longer felt hollow. It felt full, like a story that was still being told. When the festival day arrived, the village square glowed with life. Palm fronds decorated archways. Calabashes of palm wine were passed among groups of laughing elders. Children ran with painted white clay designs on their cheeks. Drummers struck rhythms that rose like heartbeats into the sky. For the first time since the night beneath the mango tree, Oluchi felt something move inside her. Not sorrow, not fear, something small, something new. She watched the dancers move, their feet beating dust into the air, their arms flowing like rivers. The music vibrated in her bones. Chitabem approached her, holding two beaded waist sashes. He did not speak. He simply held them out. Oluchi met his eyes. A choice. To step back into life. To move. To breathe. To belong again. She reached out slowly. Her fingers brushed his. But before she could take the beads, a shadow crossed the sky. Not the shadow of cloud. Not bird. Not spirit. Thunder rolled. Deep and sharp. Though no storm cloud hung overhead. The drummers faltered just for a moment. Every head lifted, every ear strained. The wind changed direction, carrying a scent not of rain, but of foreign dust. Amarachi stood still. Papa Yuke's breath stilled in his throat. Chitabem's hand tightened around the beads. Oluchi felt her skin prickle. From a northern path, beyond the hills, beyond the forest, came the distant sound of hooves. Horses. But Aguta had no horses. No village nearby owned them. No one who rode horses came with simple intentions. Oluchi felt it before she understood it. A new story was arriving. A new shadow. A new test. The spirits had been laid to rest. But the world had not finished shaping her. The drums began again, slow this time. Warning beats, calling the village to prepare. Oluchi rose to her feet, bead still in Chitabem's hand. Her heart did not race. Her breath did not falter. She stood steady, for she had already walked through the night. What was coming was only the beginning.